Have you ever had to choose between protecting someone you love or accepting the protection you so desperately need? To be strong on your own, or to allow someone to stay by your side, even when it puts that person in danger? Because that's the cruelest crossroads anyone can find themselves at. That's exactly where Emma Carson was on that cold December night, with a backpack on her shoulders and a broken heart in her chest. Sometimes, the greatest danger isn't staying, it's running away alone. And when Emma decided to disappear in the middle of the night to protect the man who risked everything for her, she didn't know she was making the deadliest mistake of her life. The backpack was packed. Enough clothes for a week, documents hidden at the bottom, the money he had saved over the years kept in a sealed envelope. The note was written, scribbled with trembling hands, stained with tears she couldn't hold back, containing words that physically ached to put on paper. Emma looked one last time at the cabin where she had felt safe for the first time in weeks, where she had discovered what it meant to be truly seen by someone, where she had found something she didn't even know she was looking for. She took a deep breath, trying to memorize every detail: the smell of burning wood from the fireplace, the specific creak of the third floorboard, the way the moonlight streamed through the kitchen window. And then, with a heart heavy as lead, he opened the door. But before she could take the first step into the darkness and the unknown, before she could make the irreversible mistake of disappearing alone into a world where dangerous men actively hunted her, a deep voice cut through the silence like a blade. "I thought we were partners in this." Emma froze. Every muscle in her body tensed, every nerve ending fired with panic, mixed with something more complicated: relief, guilt, shame at having been caught. She turned slowly, and there he was, Jake Mercer, standing in the darkness, between the trees, his arms crossed over his broad chest, his badge reflecting the faint moonlight. And those eyes that had seen so much horror, but now watched her with a mixture of frustration, pain, and something deeper that made her stomach churn. Have you ever been through this? That moment when you're caught doing exactly what you swore you wouldn't do, where all your rationalizations and justifications evaporate under the weight of a gaze that sees through all your defenses. Emma felt the words die in her throat. How could she explain? How could she make him understand that she was trying to save him, even if it meant condemning herself? "Jake, she began, but he raised his hand, asking for silence. Not in anger, but with a calm authority that always made people stop and pay attention when he spoke. He walked toward her with measured, deliberate steps, until he was close enough for Emma to see every line of worry on his face, every shadow of sleepless nights, every mark that the last few weeks had left on a man who already carried too many scars. "How did you know?" Emma asked, her voice weaker than she intended, carrying all the vulnerability she had tried to hide behind her decision to run away. "I know you," Jake answered simply, and those 3 words carried a weight that made tears burn in Emma's eyes, because he truly knew. He had seen beyond the masks she wore to the world, the ever-smiling nurse, the woman who said she was fine when she wasn't, the person who had spent her entire life caring for others but never letting anyone care for her. "Stay with me until the end." Because what happened in that moment, in that silent confrontation between a woman who didn't know how to accept help and a man who didn't know how to stop protecting, would reveal truths about love, sacrifice, and the true meaning of partnership that neither of them was prepared to face. Jake had seen the signs that Emma thought she had hidden so well. He had noticed how she looked at maps when she thought he wasn't paying attention. He had noticed how she checked bus schedules on her cell phone, how she researched small towns in other states where someone could disappear without a trace. And more importantly, he had seen the way she said goodbye to the little things that afternoon, touching the window frame as if it were the last time, staring at the fireplace for too long, cherishing every memory of that place where, for the first time in her adult life, she hadn't been invisible. Jake had seen all of that and understood what was coming, because he knew her. He knew that self-destructive impulse to sacrifice herself to protect others. He knew that fear of being a burden, that inability to believe that someone would choose to stay when things got too difficult. He knew why he was exactly like that, until he met Emma, until she started cracking the walls he had built around his own heart. And now, standing there in the dark with the woman who had changed everything trying to escape him, Jake realized that this wasn't just about protecting a witness. It had never been just about that. It was about two broken people learning that sometimes the greatest courage isn't facing danger alone. It's allowing someone to stand by your side while you face it. It was about two broken people learning that sometimes the greatest courage isn't facing danger alone. It's allowing someone to stand by your side while you face it. Jake, I need to do this, Emma said. And there was a desperation in her voice that cut deeper than any physical threat. They threatened your family, your mother, your brother. You can't lose everything because of me. I can't carry this burden. Jake stepped forward, closing the space between them. And Emma saw something in his eyes that took her breath away. Wasn't anger at what she had tried to do. It was fear. Genuine, raw fear of losing her. And perhaps for the first time since all this began, Emma understood that it wasn't just her who had something to lose. Jake did too. He had invested not only his badge and his reputation in this protection, but something far more valuable, his heart. Do you think you're protecting me? Jake asked, and there was an intensity in his voice that made each word vibrate in the cold night air. Emma, if you leave here alone, you'll be dead in 48 hours. Maybe less. The words fell between them like stones thrown into still water, creating waves of reality that Emma had tried to ignore. She wanted to argue, wanted to say that he was exaggerating, being overprotective. But when she looked into his eyes, she saw only truth. Brutal and undeniable truth from someone who knew exactly how these men operated, who had seen the behind the scenes of this invisible war that she had stumbled upon unwittingly. You don't know this, she began, but Jake cut her off, and for the first time since she'd known him, her voice rose above that ironclad control he always maintained. I know exactly that. The words exploded from him, laden with weeks of pent-up tension, fear he wouldn't allow himself to show, frustration at not being able to make Emma understand the real danger she would face alone. But then he stopped, took a deep breath, forcing himself to regain that trademark calm. When he spoke again, his voice was lower, but no less intense. They have resources you can't even imagine. Facial recognition at airports, informants at bus stations, card tracking. Do you think they can simply disappear? Emma felt her legs weaken under the weight of the truth. She had been naive, she realized. She had watched too many movies where ordinary people managed to escape and start new lives with false identities. But this was real life. And in real life, people with the kind of power and resources these men had didn't lose track of anyone. Not for long. If you've ever felt too small in the face of a problem that was too big, if you've ever tried to carry a weight alone that was clearly beyond your capacity, share in the comments how you dealt with it. Because Emma was at that point, now the point where pride and fear meet the desperate need to accept help. And it's not easy. It never is. Especially when accepting help means allowing someone you care about to put themselves at risk. So what do I do? Emma whispered. And there was a surrender in that question that went far beyond the immediate situation. It was the surrender of someone who had spent her entire life being strong, being independent, and who was finally, painfully, learning that true strength sometimes means letting someone else be strong with you. Do I just stay here and let them destroy you? Destroy your family? Jake took the backpack that was still hanging from her shoulder and gently placed it on the ground. Then, with a gentleness that contrasted completely with the tension of the moment, he held her shoulders not forcefully, but firmly enough to anchor her to reality. You stay, he said, and there was an authority in those words that didn't come from the badge but from something much deeper. And let me do my job. And if this part is resonating with you, If you're feeling the tension between wanting to protect someone and needing to be protected, leave a like here so I know you're truly connected to this story. Because what comes next will show you that sometimes the answers we seek aren't the ones we expect to find. Emma looked at him, searching Jake's eyes for any sign of doubt, any crack in the certainty he projected. But all she saw was absolute determination mixed with something that made her heart race in a way completely different from fear. It was care. It was genuine concern. It was the gaze of someone who saw not just a witness or a responsibility, but a person who mattered. Your family, Emma started, but Jake shook his head. She's safe. He revealed it, and Emma blinked in confusion. As soon as I received that threat, I placed my mother and brother under federal protection. They are in safe locations, Emma, with agents watching them 24 hours a day. The revelation hit Emma like a wave of ice. You did all this, and didn't tell me. Because I knew, Jake said, and there was something almost like a sad smile at the corners of his mouth, that you would do exactly what you tried to do today. That you would try to sacrifice yourself to protect me. He took another step, getting close enough for Emma to feel his warmth cutting through the cold of the night. But I don't need protection. Emma, I need you to trust me. And if you want to follow more stories like this, stories that delve deep into the real emotions of people in impossible situations, subscribe to the channel. Because Emma and Jake's journey is far from over, and you'll want to be here when the next revelations come. Trust. The word echoed in Emma's mind like a bell ringing in an empty cathedral. Trust meant vulnerability. It meant admitting she couldn't do everything alone. It meant accepting that maybe, just maybe, she deserved to have someone fighting by her side, instead of always having to fight alone. And that was the hardest lesson Emma had ever faced, harder, even than the physical danger that haunted her. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Because to truly understand why Emma made that desperate decision to run away, a decision that could have cost her life, you need to understand where that self-destructive impulse to always sacrifice herself for others came from. And the hidden truth is that Emma wasn't a coward. She never was. She was realistic. Or at least, that's what she told herself as she packed that backpack with hands trembling with fear and determination in equal measure. 3 weeks had passed since the arrests that should have brought relief, but in reality only offered a temporary respite from the constant tension. 3 weeks since Emma had seen men being led away in handcuffs on the news, since federal prosecutors had assured her that she was safe now, that the worst was behind her. But then came that letter, that innocent white envelope in the mailbox containing only 10 words, but carrying the weight of a death sentence. Some debts are never forgiven. We will be watching. The letter had made it clear that the danger was not over, that the prisons had been merely the surface, only the executors, and not the true architects of the operation. The leader, that man, whose name, Jake, had mentioned only once with a tension in his jaw that revealed real fear, was still out there. Free, powerful, and very, very vengeful. Worse still, Jake had received that terrible call that same day. Emma had heard everything because he had put it on speakerphone, wanting her to know what they were dealing with. The electronically distorted voice offered an impossible choice: turn in the witness, or lose everything. And when everything included specific threats against her elderly mother in a nursing home in Riverside, and her younger brother trying to rebuild his life in Denver, Emma knew they weren't empty bluffs, they were promises. And Emma knew, with that painful certainty that comes when you care too much about someone, when the mere thought of seeing them suffer because of you becomes more unbearable than your own suffering, that she couldn't let Jake destroy her life because of her. She wasn't worth it. Nobody was worth it. She had watched the weight accumulating on his shoulders over those 3 weeks. She had watched, helplessly, as Jake became an even more tense version of himself. And, considering he was already a man who rarely relaxed, that was saying a lot. She saw how he constantly checked his phone, waiting for news about his family in other states. each notification making him tense, as if he were expecting confirmation of his worst fears. She saw the tension that never left his body even when he should have been resting. How? He slept in short intervals of no more than 2 hours, always alert, always vigilant, always ready for the next attack. Jake had given so much in the last few weeks that Emma had lost count. His time, hours, and days he should have been working on regular cases or simply living his life. His safety repeatedly placing himself between her and danger without hesitation. His reputation rumors were circulating in Willow Ridge about the sheriff who had protected a witness outside official channels, who had operated in gray areas of legality. His career hung by a thread, depending on internal investigations that could either exonerate him as a hero or condemn him for misconduct. And now his family was threatened because of her. Because he had chosen to protect her when anyone else would have simply passed the case on and washed their hands of it. "I can't let him lose everything because of me," Emma whispered to herself as she packed her few belongings that night, folding the 3 t-shirts she owned, rolling up her only extra pair of jeans, and sorting through the essential documents. "If I disappear, if they can't find me, maybe they'll leave Jake alone. Maybe they'll lose interest. Maybe... It was the logic of desperation, she knew, deep down. The logic of someone who had never learned to accept help without feeling like an unbearable burden. A logic born from a lifetime of being the caregiver and never the person being cared for. Emma had grown up at 12 when her mother became ill, progressive multiple sclerosis that transformed a vibrant woman into someone who needed assistance with the most basic tasks. Emma had been the daughter who assumed adult responsibilities as a child, who learned to give injections at 14, who managed medications and medical appointments while her friends worried about parties and boys. Her mother had died when Emma was 22, and even on her deathbed she had apologized. "I'm sorry for being a burden, my love." Those words had pierced Emma's soul like poisoned thorns. Her mother, the person she loved most in the world, thought she had been a burden. And Emma had sworn right there, beside that hospital bed, that she would never make anyone feel that way because of her. That she would never be a burden in anyone's life. And now, here she was, decades later, being exactly what she had sworn she would never be, a burden, threatening to destroy the life of a good man. Because Jake was good, she had discovered. Beneath all that toughness, all that facade of a ruthless sheriff, there was a man with a heart too big for his own, with a sense of responsibility so deep it bordered on self-destructive. A man who carried guilt that wasn't entirely his, who punished himself for failures the system had committed. Emma had found out about Sarah Hollis, a witness Jake had lost 6 years ago. She had heard the story in fragments during sleepless nights, when conversations deepened, when barriers fell and painful truths emerged. Sarah had been young, with her whole life ahead of her, and she had died because Jake followed protocols instead of instincts. Since then, he had carried that failure like a heavy cross, punishing himself by keeping everyone at emotional distance, because proximity meant the potential for loss. Even Emma. Somehow, Emma had managed to penetrate those defenses. He had seen the man beyond the badge, and now he was about to destroy him in exactly the way he feared most, by being yet another person he had failed to protect. "Not this time," Emma murmured as she closed her backpack. "This time I'll make the right choice. I'll leave. I'll disappear. And he'll stay alive and safe, and can move on with his life, without me as an anchor dragging him down." She had researched, planned. She knew of a small town in Oregon where it was supposedly easy to get a job without asking too many questions. She had enough money for a few weeks if she was careful. She could change her name, dye her hair, wear fake glasses. She could become someone else, not Emma Carson, the nurse from Willow Ridge, but someone new, someone without a past, someone who wouldn't put the people she loved in danger. The people she loved. The phrase echoed in her mind and Emma stopped, her hands frozen on the zipper of her backpack. When had she started loving Jake Mercer? Not necessarily romantic love, though there were elements of that too. She wasn't blind, but that deeper kind of love that comes from seeing someone completely, with all their flaws and scars, and still choosing to stay, choosing to care, choosing to let that person's well-being become as important as her own. It had been gradual, she realized. It began that first night when Jake got her out of the apartment with an efficiency that was comforting rather than frightening. It grew during the desperate escape from the compromised safe house, when she saw his absolute determination to keep her alive. It deepened in the long, nightly conversations by the fireplace, when barriers crumbled and souls revealed themselves. And it solidified in that moment when she touched his hand and he didn't pull away. That simple yet monumental moment when Jake Mercer allowed himself to be vulnerable. And it was precisely because she loved in all the complicated ways that verb could mean that she had to leave. Because love sometimes means letting someone go to keep them safe. It means carrying the pain of separation alone so that the other person doesn't have to bear the burden of your presence. Emma wrote the note with hands that trembled so much that the words came out crooked, almost illegible. She tried 3 times before managing to get something that conveyed what she needed without revealing too much of what she felt. Jake, you've done more for me than I could ever repay. But I can't let you lose your family, your life, because of me. I'm going to disappear. Please don't look for me. You'll be safer that way, she signed. With just an E, because writing her full name seemed too permanent, too final. She left the note on the kitchen table, grabbed her backpack, and waited. Jake patrolled every 2 hours, an obsessive habit of checking the perimeter, looking for threats, making sure they were safe. She had 15 minutes, maybe 20 if he decided to do a more thorough check. Comment below. This makes sense to me. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because that moment when Emma opened the back door and took exactly 3 steps before freezing completely was the turning point that would reveal not only the depth of the connection between her and Jake, but also the hidden truth about what it really means to know someone. Not superficially, not just the basic facts of their lives, but to truly know them, to understand the patterns, anticipate the decisions, see through the masks we all wear to hide our deepest vulnerabilities. Emma had waited until Jake left to do his nightly perimeter patrol, something he did religiously every 2 hours, like an immutable ritual born of justified paranoia, and a responsibility he took more seriously than breathing. She had timed those patrols over the days, knew exactly how long he took, depending on the weather conditions and the perceived threat level. That night, with a clear sky and no suspicious movement in the last 48 hours, she calculated she had 15 minutes, maybe 20 if she was lucky, and he decided to do a more thorough check of the outer perimeter. She had left the short note on the kitchen table, positioned where he couldn't miss it as soon as he returned. The words had cost her pieces of her soul to write, each letter carrying the weight of a farewell she knew would hurt him, but believed was necessary. Jake, you've done more for me than I could ever repay, but I can't let you lose your family, your life, because of me. I'm going to disappear. Please don't look for me. You'll be safer that way. Emma grabbed her backpack with hands that trembled so much she almost dropped it twice. She took 3 deep breaths, trying to calm her heart, which was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. Then she opened the back door, the one that creaked less, the one Jake had lubricated the previous week, precisely to facilitate silent exits in case of emergency. The irony of using his preparation to escape him did not go unnoticed. The night air hit her face like an icy slap. December had arrived in full force, bringing temperatures that froze her breath and made each exhalation visible as a tiny cloud of vapor. Emma took her first step onto the frost-covered grass. The sound almost inaudible, but every fiber of her being hyper-aware of each movement. Second step, she was committed now. There was no turning back. Third step, and then she froze completely. Jake was there, standing in the darkness between the line of trees and the cabin, just a solid silhouette against the deepest darkness of the forest. His arms crossed over his broad chest, his feet planted firmly on the ground in a posture Emma had learned meant he wasn't going to give in, wasn't going to move, wasn't going to let this go. His expression was unreadable in the shadows, but his eyes, even in the darkness, Emma could see the gleam in them, could feel the intensity burned with something between frustration and pain. "I thought we were partners in this," he said, his voice low but laden with restrained emotion, cutting through the cold air and silence of the night like a sharp blade. There was no accusation in his voice, not exactly, but there was disappointment, and somehow, that was worse. Emma could have dealt with anger. Anger, she understood. Anger made sense. But that quiet disappointment, that barely concealed pain of someone who had trusted and felt betrayed, shattered something inside her. Emma felt her heart sink, plunging through her chest, until it lodged somewhere near her stomach, where it weighed like a stone. Her first reaction was defensive. She was doing the right thing. She was protecting him. How could he not see that? But then his words really registered. Partners? He had said partners. Not protector and protected, not sheriff and witness, but partners. Equals, two sides of an equation working together. "How did you know?" Emma asked, her voice lower than she intended, carrying all the vulnerability she had tried to hide behind her decision to run away. She had been so careful, had planned every detail, had waited for the perfect moment. How had he known? "I know you," Jake replied simply, and those 3 words carried a weight that made tears burn in Emma's eyes. He took a step forward, emerging from the deepest shadows, and the faint moonlight illuminated his face, enough for Emma to see every line of worry, every shadow of sleepless nights, every mark the last few weeks had left. "I saw you looking at maps." Emma blinked. She had been so careful about this. She had waited until he was out of the room. She had closed the browser tabs immediately afterwards. "I saw you checking bus schedules on your phone," Jake continued, taking another step, closing the space between them with an inevitability that felt both physical and emotional. "I saw how you said goodbye to the little things here, today, touching the window frame, as if it were the last time. Staring at the fireplace for too long, storing every detail in your memory. Each revelation was like a punch, too. The gut." Emma had thought she was being subtle, that she was successfully hiding her intentions. But Jake had seen everything. He had observed, understood, and anticipated it. "As if it were the last time," Jake repeated, and there was something broken in the way he said those words. "Because for you it was, wasn't it? You were saying goodbye." Emma felt the tears finally overflowing, running hot down her cold cheeks. "I was trying to protect you," she said, and the defense sounded weak, even to her own ears. "Protect me." Jake gave a short, humorless laugh. "Emma, you were condemning yourself, and making me live with it." The accusation hit him hard, because it was true. Emma hadn't thought about how Jake would feel waking up to find her simply gone. She hadn't considered that for a man already burdened with the guilt of losing a witness. Losing Emma not to violence, but to her own decision to flee would be a different kind of torture. A kind where he would have to live knowing she was out there, alone, vulnerable, and that he hadn't been able to do anything because she hadn't trusted him enough to stay. "I didn't want to be a burden," Emma whispered, and there it was, the stark truth at the heart of it all. The fundamental belief that had guided so many of her life decisions. The deeply ingrained fear that her presence, her needs, her very existence were too much for anyone to bear. Jake closed the remaining distance between them in 3 long strides. He took her shoulders, not with a force that hurt, but with a firmness that anchored her. That said without words that he was there and wasn't going to let her drift away in the current of her own fears. "You're not a burden," he said, and there was a fierce intensity in his voice that made Emma finally meet his eyes. "Emma, you've never been a burden." "You are," he paused, searching for the right words, then gave up on finding them perfectly packaged. You're the reason I wake up and obsessively make these rounds. You're the reason I call my mother every day now, because you reminded me that family matters. You're the first person in 6 years who's made me feel something other than guilt and responsibility. The words tumbled between them like confessions forcibly extracted, revealing layers that Jake normally kept buried beneath meters of emotional protection. But your family, Emma began. She's safe, Jake interrupted, and there was frustration now, mixed with relief. I told you, Emma, as soon as I received those threats, I put protection in place. My mother is in a safe location with federal agents. My brother too. I wasn't going to leave this to chance. He paused, and his expression softened slightly. And I didn't tell you because I knew that you would use this as an excuse to try to sacrifice yourself. Emma felt her legs weaken under the weight of all those revelations. Jake caught her before she fell, guiding her to sit on the steps of the cabin's porch. He sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched, offering warmth and solidity at a time when Emma felt everything inside her was crumbling. Why didn't you tell me? She finally asked, her voice choked with emotion. Because I was afraid, Jake admitted. And that confession cost him something Amok could see it in the tension of his jaw, in the way he stared into the darkness ahead, instead of at her. Afraid that if you knew you had a clear path, you would take it. That you would disappear, and I would lose. He paused, swallowing hard. I would lose you. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because that moment, sitting side by side on the cold porch steps, with Jake's confession still echoing in the frigid night air, marked a fundamental transformation in the dynamic between them. It was no longer about protector and protected, no longer about duty and responsibility. It was about two people who had found something rare and precious amidst chaos and danger, and who now needed to decide if they had the courage to fight for it. Jake, I need to do this, Emma said again. But this time, her trembling voice revealed that she no longer fully believed her own words. They threatened your family, your mother, your brother. You can't lose everything because of me. It was as if she were reciting lines from a script she had memorized, but which now sounded empty in the face of the reality Jake had presented. Jake rose from the steps, frustration finally overcoming the rigid control he always maintained. He took one step forward, then another, moving with a contained energy that made the air around him seem electrically charged. And Emma saw something in his eyes that literally took her breath away. It wasn't anger at the escape attempt. It wasn't disappointment at the lack of trust. It was fear. Genuine, raw, unfiltered fear of losing her. And seeing Jake Mercer, the man who had faced gunmen without blinking, the war veteran who had seen unimaginable horrors, the sheriff who had a reputation for being ruthless under pressure, seeing this man with real fear etched on his face was like a punch to Emma's gut. Do you think you're protecting me? Jake asked, and there was an intensity in his voice that Emma had never heard before. Not even during their desperate escape, when gunshots echoed behind them. Not even when he had revealed Sarah Hollis and the guilt he carried. This was different. It was the intensity of someone desperately trying to make another person understand something vital before it was too late. Emma, if you leave here alone, you're dead in 48 hours. Maybe less. The words fell between them like a death sentence pronounced by a judge, cold and final and terribly true. Emma felt their impact in her chest. But some part of her, that stubborn part that had survived the difficult childhood and the loss of her mother, and all the years of working to exhaustion, refused to fully accept it. You don't know this, she began, but Jake cut her off, and for the first time since Emma had known him, his voice rose above that measured control that was his trademark. I know exactly that. The words exploded from him with a force that made Emma instinctively recoil. Jake noticed immediately, saw her movement, and something crossed his face, remorse perhaps, or frustration with himself for losing control. He took a deep breath, closed his eyes for a second, forcing himself to calm down. When he opened his eyes again, and continued speaking, His voice was lower, but no less intense. They have resources you can't imagine, Emma. Facial recognition at airports and bus stations. Informants in hotels, motels, shelters. Tracking of credit cards, cell phones, any digital transaction you make. Jake pulled his cell phone from his pocket and began scrolling through messages, showing evidence he had compiled. Look at this. This is from the surveillance operation the FBI intercepted. They have your picture circulating on criminal networks with a $50,000 reward for information leading to your location. 50,000, Emma. Do you know how many people would sell their own mother for half that? Emma looked at the images on the screen, her own photo, the one taken at the police station weeks ago, circulating in obscure internet forums and encrypted messaging apps. She saw dollar amounts. She saw instructions in multiple languages. She saw the frightening scope of the operation that wanted to find her. Do you think you can just disappear? Jake continued, and there was an almost desperate urgency in his voice now. Dye your hair, change your name, take a bus to a small town, and start over like in the movies. Emma, they have technology, they have money, they have people in places you wouldn't even imagine. You'd be located in days, hours, maybe if you made a mistake, like using your debit card or turning on your cell phone in the wrong place. Emma felt reality crushing her like a giant wave. She had been naive, he realized. He had completely underestimated who he was fighting against. I had thought in terms of escaping some local criminals, not an organization with tentacles that reached far beyond Willow Ridge. And when they find you, Jake said, his voice dropping to almost a whisper, but each word laden with weight, I won't be there to protect you. You'll be alone, vulnerable, and Emma, double quotes. He paused, and what came next cost him something Emma could see. They won't be kind. They won't make it quick. You're a witness they wanted to silence, and who instead caused the arrest of part of their operation. You're an example that needs to be made. Do you understand what I'm saying? Emma understood. She understood perfectly. And the mental image those words conjured made bile rise in her throat. But what about you? She whispered. Jake, you risked everything. Your career hangs by a thread. You have internal investigations going on. Your family has been threatened. When will this end? When will you be able to go back to your life? Jake looked at her for a long moment, and then did something Emma didn't expect. He smiled. Not a full smile, just a slight curve of his lips, but it was genuine in a way she rarely saw from him. My life, he repeated. Emma, for the past 6 years, my life has been work, guilt, and loneliness. Waking up, working, returning to an empty house, sleeping a few hours, repeating. It's been like this since Sarah. I convinced myself that it was what I deserved, that it was the price I had to pay for failing. He took another step toward her, closing the distance until he was close enough for Emma to see every detail of his face in the dim moonlight. And then you appeared. This stubborn woman who smiles at strangers and helps neighbors and believes in kindness, even after seeing the worst of humanity. And somehow, you reminded me that there's more to life than just surviving. Emma felt tears burning again, but this time, they were different not from despair or fear, but from something more complex that she couldn't name. Then no, Jake continued. I don't want to go back to that life. I want this. I want to wake up knowing you're safe. I want to have conversations at 3 a.m. when neither of us can sleep. I want someone to call me when I'm being too stubborn or too closed off. He paused, searching for the right words, then gave up on being eloquent and was just honest. I want you in my life, for real. Not as a witness I'm protecting, but as a partner. As someone who matters in a way that goes beyond any professional responsibility. The confession hung in the air between them, vulnerable and exposed. Jake had laid his heart bare in a way that Emma knew would cost a man everything, a man who had spent years protecting himself emotionally. But that's not fair to you, Emma whispered. My life is a mess. There are people trying to kill me. You deserve someone who doesn't bring all this chaos. Maybe, Jake admitted. But I don't want anyone else. I want you. With all the chaos, with all the danger, with everything that comes with it. He crouched down to her level, still sitting on the steps. And yes, it's hard. Yes, it's dangerous. Yes, my career could go up in smoke, and I might have to answer for decisions I've made. But Emma, don't you understand? For the first time in years, I feel truly alive. I care about something beyond just surviving the next day. You gave that back to me. Comment below. This is true love. Now I want to delve even deeper into this matter. Because what Jake was about to reveal to Emma wasn't just about the immediate danger surrounding her, but about the full extent of the web that had been woven around her since that night in the alley. And the truth hidden behind the scenes of this operation was far more sophisticated and terrifying than Emma had imagined in her worst nightmares. Jake picked up his phone. Again. But this time opened a different folder, one full of files he had clearly compiled over days of obsessive investigation. He sat down next to Emma on the steps and showed her the screen, scrolling through messages he had intercepted through his contacts at the FBI. Rebecca had given him access, probably violating a dozen protocols, because she trusted Jake and because she also saw the danger Emma was in. Look at this, Jake said, pointing to a series of coded conversations. Even without fully understanding the codes, Emma could see the structure location coordinates, times, descriptions that clearly referred to her. These messages are from 3 days ago. There are people actively looking for you, not just in Willow Ridge, but in all the neighboring towns within a 200-kilometer radius. He scrolled through. Another series of images, photos of bus stations, regional airports, train stops. In each one, there was a red circle marking specific people. Lookouts, Jake explained, posted at all the obvious exit points. Some are low-level criminals who need money. Others are professionals hired specifically for this operation. Emma felt her stomach churn as she took in the extent of the surveillance. There were at least 24 locations marked, each with multiple people watching. And this, Jake said, opening another file, and what Emma saw made her blood run cold. It was an advertisement, if it could even be called, that's circulating on underground forums and encrypted messaging apps. Her photo, the one from the police station, was at the top. Below, a detailed description: height, weight, eye color, distinctive marks she didn't even know anyone had cataloged. And at the end, in large letters, $50,000 for information leading to location. $100,000 for delivery. A reward has been offered for information about his whereabouts, Jake said, and there was a tension in his jaw that revealed how dangerous he considered this. $50,000 for information alone. $100,000 if someone turns you in directly. Emma couldn't breathe properly. $100,000. That was the value of her life, or more precisely, the amount someone was willing to pay to end it. They know you're going to try to escape, Jake explained, closing the images because seeing their impact on Emma's face was clearly hurting him too. They're expecting it. In fact, they're counting on it. Because alone, you're vulnerable. Alone, you have no resources, no protection, no one constantly watching your back. He turned to look directly at her. Emma, they've set a perfect trap. Every obvious exit is covered. Every predictable move is being anticipated. If you had managed to get out of here today, it would have been a matter of hours, not days. Hours before someone recognized you and made that call. Emma felt her legs weaken even as she sat down. The full impact of the situation was finally piercing through all her rationalizations and desperate hopes. She had thought she was being clever, strategic, even brave. That she was making the noble sacrifice of stepping away to protect Jake. But she was just being predictable. She was doing exactly what they expected her to do. and she would have walked straight into their trap, carrying her small backpack and her naive plans to disappear. "So what do I do?" Emma whispered, and there was a defeat in that question that went beyond the immediate moment. It was the question of someone who had just realized that all her options led to dead ends. "Do I stay here and let them destroy you? Destroy your family? Or do I try to escape and end up dead in some ditch before dawn?" "You stay," Jake said with a firmness that left no room for argument, cutting through Emma's spiraling thoughts like a solid anchor. "And let me do my job." "Your job," Emma repeated, and there was almost a bitter laugh wanting to emerge. "Jake, you've done so much. You protected me, kept me alive, exposed corruption, risked everything. My job," Jake interrupted, "isn't finished. Because protecting you isn't just about keeping you locked in a cabin forever. It's about eliminating the threat completely." He took her hand, that simple gesture that had become a form of communication between them. "And I have a plan. Not a desperate or half-baked plan. A real plan, worked out with Rebecca and a federal team that's finally taking this seriously." Emma searched his eyes for signs of false bravado or forced optimism, but all she saw was the calculated determination of someone who had truly thought this through from every angle. "His family," Jake continued, "the leader of the organization. We identified him. Marcus Holloway, the corrupt cop, finally broke down under federal interrogation. He gave a name, Victor Castellano. He's the man at the top, the one who was running everything. Rich, well-connected, hiding behind multiple layers of legitimate businesses. But Rebecca has been building a case against him, and it's almost complete." "Almost," Emma repeated, focusing on the key word. "But not completely. Not entirely," Jake admitted. "We need one more piece of evidence. We need direct evidence connecting Castellano to the attempts on his life, the threats, the reward. All we have now is circumstantial strong, but not strong enough for a federal prosecutor to feel comfortable taking someone to trial with the lawyers Castellano can afford. So how do we achieve this?" Emma asked. And for the first time, she was truly engaged in the conversation as a partner rather than a passive victim. Jake hesitated, and Emma saw something cross his face, reluctance, perhaps fear of how she would react to what he was about to suggest. "We make him make a mistake. We make him think he has an opportunity to solve his problem once and for all. And when he moves, we catch him." "Using what as bait?" Emma asked, already knowing the answer even before Jake replied. "Not you," Jake said, quickly, almost defensively. "Never you as real bait, exposed to danger. But we can make them think they're tracking you. Rebecca can create a fake digital trail credit card, use in a city 3 hours away. A phone call from a disposable cell phone, a planted sighting at a train station. We'll make it look like you really escaped, that you managed to get past their surveillance." Emma began to understand. "And they're going after the false trail." "Exactly, with you safe here under the protection of a federal team, not just me, but real agents that Rebecca will deploy. We can follow whoever's responding to the false trail. We can trace them back to Castellano. We can get communications, direct orders, money transfers. Everything we need for a sealed federal case." There was logic to the plan, Emma had to admit. But there were also risks, so many risks that she could hardly begin to catalog them. "What if they don't take the bait?" she asked. "What if Castellano is too clever to fall into? An obvious trap." "So we keep trying," Jake said simply. "We keep building the case piece by piece until we have enough." "But Emma, what's the alternative? You living in hiding forever? Us always looking over our shoulders? That's not life, for any of us." He was right, Emma knew. She didn't want to live in perpetual hiding, always afraid, always waiting for the day her luck would run out and they would find her. She wanted her life back. She wanted to be able to work at the hospital again, help people, have normal routines. She looked at Jake, really looked at the man who had given up so much for her, who had placed himself between her and danger time and time again, who had just confessed feelings that clearly cost someone so emotionally closed off everything. and Emma realized that what she truly wanted was the chance to explore what was blossoming between them. Not under the extreme circumstances of forced protection, but under normal conditions where choices were truly choices and not just reactions to death threats. How long would it take? Emma asked. To prepare everything. 72 hours, Jake replied. Rebecca is already assembling the team. They're already preparing the fake digital trail. In 3 days, we can be ready to launch the operation. 3 days, 72 hours between now and a possible resolution. Or 72 hours until everything explodes in ways none of them could have predicted. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because those 72 hours Jake mentioned weren't just about operational preparedness or federal logistics. They were about a fundamental transformation in how Emma and Jake related to each other. And what happened during those 3 days would reveal layers of truth that neither of them was prepared to face, but which were absolutely necessary for them to move forward, together or apart. Emma remained silent for a long moment, processing everything, the plan, the risks, the revelations about Jake's family, and especially that vulnerable confession he'd made about truly wanting her in his life. Finally, she took a deep breath and asked the question that had been burning in her mind ever since Jake had mentioned federal protection for his family. Is your family really safe? She asked, needing to hear it again, needing confirmation. My family is safe, Jake revealed, with a conviction that left no room for doubt, and Emma blinked in confusion, because if it was true, then the entire basis of her decision to flee had been built on false information. But the connection? They said it was to scare us, Jake interrupted, and there was contained anger in his voice, not directed at Emma, but at the men who had used that intimidation tactic to make us make mistakes, to leave us so terrified that we would make desperate decisions without thinking clearly. He ran a hand through his hair, that gesture of frustration that Emma had learned to recognize as a sign that he was dealing with intense emotions he preferred not to show. As soon as I received that threat, Emma, literally within an hour, I put my mother and brother under federal protection. They are in secure locations with agents watching them 24 hours a day. I wasn't going to leave that to chance. Emma felt tears burning in her eyes again. But this time they were a different kind of tears, not of despair or fear, but of something more complex that mixed relief, frustration, and overwhelming gratitude. You did all this, and you didn't tell me. The question came out laden with all the emotions Emma had experienced in the past few weeks, the fear for his family's safety, the guilt for putting them in danger, the crushing weight of feeling responsible for potentially destroying everything Jake loved. Because I knew, Jake said, his voice softening now, losing that hard edge and gaining a gentleness Emma rarely heard from him, that you would do exactly what you tried to do today, that you would try to carry this weight alone, that you would try to sacrifice yourself to protect me. He took another step, getting close enough for Emma to see every detail of his face in the dim moonlight, the lines of worry around his eyes, the tension that never quite left his jaw, but also something softer, more vulnerable, that he rarely let show. But I don't need protection, Emma. I need you to trust me. Trust, that word again. Emma realized she was at the center of everything, not the external danger, not the threats or the plans or the federal logistics. It was about two people who had been shaped by loss and disappointment, learning to trust each other enough to be vulnerable, to admit needs, to stop trying to carry everything alone. I don't know how to do this, Emma admitted, and the confession cost her something because it meant admitting a fundamental weakness. Jake, my whole life, I've been the strong one, the one who took care of the sick. Mother, the one who worked double shifts to pay the bills, the one who smiled and said everything was fine even when it clearly wasn't. I never had someone who really stuck around when things got tough. The words flowed out like a torrent now, years of repressed emotions finally finding their voice. My father left when I was 7 because he couldn't cope with my mother's illness. The boyfriends I had always disappeared as soon as they realized I had real responsibilities, that it wasn't just casual fun. Even friends eventually drifted away because I always canceled plans to take care of my mother or to work. So I learned not to depend on anyone. I learned that the only person I could trust was myself. Jake listened in silence, and Emma saw something changing in his expression, understanding dawning, pieces of a puzzle finally falling into place. And now you're here, Emma continued, her voice trembling, making all these promises about staying, about protecting me, about really wanting this. And I want to believe you, Jake. God, I so badly want to believe you, but I'm so afraid to trust you and then find out it was temporary. That it was just the heat of the moment. That when the danger passes, you'll look at me and realize I'm just an ordinary woman who brings too many complications to your life. Jake, let Emma finish. Let all those words come out, all those old wounds be exposed. And then, instead of responding immediately, he did something Emma didn't expect. He gently took her hands and began to speak with a raw honesty that clearly cost him something as well. I understand, he said, more than you can imagine. Because I did the same thing after Sarah. I built walls so high around myself that no one could get in. I convinced myself it was safer that way, that if I didn't care too deeply about anyone, I couldn't fail them. I couldn't lose them and have to carry that guilt. He paused, swallowing hard. And it worked, in a way. I survived. But, Emma, surviving isn't living. It's just ... existing. Going through the motions without really feeling anything. He squeezed her hands, as if he needed that physical contact to continue. You scare me, Jake admitted, and the vulnerability in that confession was almost painful to witness. You scare me because, for the first time in 6 years, I care about someone enough that the idea of losing them terrifies me. And yes, part of me wants to run. Wants to go back to those safe walls where nothing hurts because nothing really matters. But the bigger part of me, the part that finally woke up after years of sleeping, knows that you're worth the risk. That this, whatever this is between us, is worth the possibility of pain. Emma felt something breaking inside her, not in a destructive way, but like melting ice, like barriers finally being torn down after years of keeping them standing. I can't promise this will be easy, Jake continued. I can't promise I won't make mistakes, or that I won't frustrate you with my tendency to be too closed off or too controlling. And I can't promise that this danger will instantly disappear or that our life will be a fairy tale without complications. He paused, and what he said next was delivered with an absolute certainty that cut through all of Emma's doubts. But I can promise I'll stay. When things get tough, when you have bad days, when complications arise, they will arise because life is complicated. I'll be here. I won't run. I won't disappear. And I won't look at you as a burden because you never were and never will be a burden to me. The tears Emma had been holding back finally overflowed, streaming silently down her cheeks. But for the first time in a long time, they weren't tears of sadness or fear. They were tears of liberation, of finally letting someone see all her broken parts and not being rejected, of finally hearing the words she had needed to hear her whole life but never had. So yes, Jake said, returning to the practical matter but without losing that emotional intensity, my family is safe. I took care of it because it's my responsibility to take care of the people I love. And now I'm taking care of you, too. Not because you're weak or incapable, but because when you truly care about someone, you don't let them face danger alone when you can be by their side. Emma pulled one of his hands away and wiped the tears from her face, trying to regain some composure. So the plan, the operation in 72 hours. You really think it's going to work? I think we have a real chance, Jake replied honestly. Rebecca is good. Very good. And the federal team she's assembling is made up of people who take this seriously. But Emma, I'm not going to lie to you, there are risks. There are always risks when you're dealing with desperate, well-funded criminals. But you'll be there, Emma said. and it wasn't a question. I'll be there, every step of the way. Comment below. Now, these are real partners. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Because those 72 hours that followed that conversation on the porch weren't just about tactical preparation or operational logistics. They were about Emma and Jake finally confronting the deepest truths about who they were and what they truly wanted from each other. And the impact of that emotional journey would be as transformative as any resolution to the external danger that threatened them. Emma sank onto the balcony step, the backpack she had packed, with such determination now falling beside her as a symbol of a failed attempt at protection through self-sacrifice. The adrenaline that had fueled her decision to flee was finally draining, leaving behind only emotional exhaustion and a raw vulnerability she rarely allowed anyone to see. "I don't know how to do this," she admitted, her voice breaking, carrying the weight of decades of conditioning and old wounds that had never truly healed. "Jake, my whole life, I've been the caregiver, the nurse who stayed overtime to make sure patients were comfortable, the helpful neighbor who carried groceries and checked on the elderly, the responsible daughter who sacrificed her adolescence to manage medications and medical appointments." The words poured out like a torrent now, as if a dam had finally broken after years of holding everything back. I never had someone who truly stayed, who truly fought for me when things got tough, who saw me as more than just someone useful or someone who needed to be tolerated." The words came out as a painful confession, revealing old wounds she had never verbalized to anyone, not to therapists she had tried seeing a few times before giving up because sessions cost money she didn't have. Not to friends who eventually drifted away when they realized Emma was always canceling plans. Not even to herself in the loneliest moments of the early morning, when the truth seemed too heavy to bear alone. Emma had grown up caring for a sick mother since she was 12, spending her adolescence and young adulthood giving and giving and giving until there was nothing left for herself. She had learned to stifle her own needs because her mother's needs were always more urgent, more visible, more legitimate in some way. She had learned that asking for help was selfishness, that expressing tiredness was weakness, that true love meant silently sacrificing oneself without complaint. And even after her mother died, even when theoretically she was finally free to live for herself, those patterns remained so deeply ingrained that Emma didn't even realize she was repeating them. She continued to be the nurse who worked double shifts when others asked for time off. She continued to be the neighbor who helped everyone but never asked for help in return. She continued to be the woman who made herself small in relationships, who settled for crumbs of affection because believing she deserved more seemed arrogant or irrational. The idea that someone, especially someone like Jake Mercer, a man with distinction, reputation, and responsibilities of his own would choose to risk so much for her was almost impossible to process. It challenged the entire narrative Emma had constructed about her own worth. If she wasn't just the helpful caregiver, if she wasn't just the person who served others, then who was she? And if someone saw her as worthy of protection, of sacrifice, of love, what did that mean about all those beliefs she had carried for so long about being essentially a burden that people tolerated? "I'm scared," Emma whispered, and admitting it aloud took more courage than facing armed men or testifying in federal depositions. Not just of the men out there, not just of the threats or the reward or the possibility of dying. She finally looked up to meet Jake's eyes, letting him see all the fear and vulnerability she normally hid behind smiles and professional efficiency. "I'm scared to trust this, to trust you, to believe that you really want this, that it's not just adrenaline or a sense of duty or guilt about Sarah making you confuse responsibility with something else." Her voice broke again, and she had to pause to catch her breath before continuing with the hardest part of the confession. "What if you regret it? What if, when the danger has passed and the adrenaline has worn off, and you really look at Emma Carson, the ordinary nurse with nothing special about her, you realize I'm just another responsibility, another burden? What if I'm too much? What if my complications are too much? What if the emotional baggage I carry is too much? Jake had remained silent throughout Emma's confession, letting her speak, letting all those old wounds be exposed to the light. And now, instead of rushing in with empty reassurances or easy promises, he sat beside her on the step, close enough that their shoulders touched, offering physical contact and presence before words. "Can I tell you something?" Jake said after a long moment, his voice low but firm. "Something I've never told anyone, not even Rebecca, who is probably the closest thing I have to a best friend." Emma nodded, turning slightly to look at him. "After Sarah died," Jake began, and Emma could hear the emotional cost of every word. "I couldn't sleep. For months. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her. I saw her body covered by the white sheet stained red. I saw her parents, devastated at the funeral. I heard the sound of her mother screaming when she identified the body." He paused, his jaw clenching. "I started having panic attacks." Aja, war veteran, a man trained to handle high-stress situations, was having panic attacks in supermarkets, whenever. "I saw someone who resembled Sarah from afar." Emma said nothing, only listened, understanding that Jake was offering his own vulnerability in exchange for hers. "I went to 3 different therapists," Jake continued. "Dismissed the first 2 after 1 session, because I couldn't handle the idea of admitting weakness. I endured the 3rd for 6 months. And you know what she told me? That I had to forgive myself. That I had done the best I could with the information I had." He gave a short, bitter laugh. "And I wanted to believe it. I tried, but I couldn't. So I did what I knew how to do. I buried everything, built walls, convinced myself that if I simply never cared deeply about anyone again, I would never have to go through that again." He turned to look directly at Emma. "So when you ask if I'll regret it when the adrenaline wears off, if I'll realize you're too much or a burden, Emma, I already know who you are. I'm not getting to know you under false pretenses. I've seen you at your worst. I've seen you terrified and crying. I've seen you trying to be strong when you were clearly broken inside. I've seen you worry more about my safety than your own, to the point of trying to run away. Alone to a probable death." Jake took her hand again, intertwining their fingers in a way that had become almost natural between them. "And you know what else I saw? I saw you comforting a frightened child at that hospital where we worked weeks ago when we picked up supplies. I saw you insisting on washing the dishes, even when you were exhausted, because you didn't want to be a burden. I saw you waking up from nightmares, and instead of waking me up to talk, I saw you sitting alone in the darkness trying to deal with it alone because God forbid you be a burden to anyone." There was a gentle frustration in her voice now, but not directed at her, directed at the circumstances and beliefs that had shaped Emma in this way. "Then no," Jake said with a firmness that left no room for argument. "I won't regret it, because what I feel for you isn't confusion or adrenaline or misdirected guilt. It's a choice. A conscious and deliberate choice to want you in my life. With all the baggage, with all the complications, with everything you think makes you too much." Emma felt something fundamental shifting within her, not an instant cure for decades of conditioning, but a crack in the walls she had built around her own needs and desires. "And what about you being ordinary?" Jake continued, almost with a sad smile. "Emma, ordinary people don't witness crimes, knowing the risks. Ordinary people don't survive weeks under threat of death without completely falling apart. Ordinary people don't care so much about the well-being of others that they try to sacrifice themselves, even when it goes against every survival instinct." He squeezed her hand. "You're not ordinary. You're extraordinary, precisely because you're human and real and imperfect." Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Because what happened in that embracing, that moment where 2 fundamentally broken people allowed their cracks to align and create something stronger than any perfect armor could ever be, was the true turning point of this story. Not the federal operations or the tactical plans, but that profoundly human decision to stop running from each other and from themselves. Jake remained seated beside her on the step, their shoulders touching in the small space, and that simple contact carried more weight than any elaborate promise could. For a long moment, he said nothing, just stood there, present and solid as a rock amidst the storm of emotions Emma was experiencing. There was something profoundly comforting in that shared silence, not an absence of connection, but the deepest form of it, where words weren't necessary because mere presence said everything. "I won't regret it," he finally said, his voice low but laden with an absolute certainty that cut through all the doubts Emma had voiced. It wasn't bravado or empty reassurance meant merely to calm her. It was a statement of fact, simple and unwavering. "Emma, look at me." She hesitated for a second because looking into someone's eyes when you've just laid bare all your deepest vulnerabilities is terrifying in a visceral way. Then she turned her face, and she met those eyes she had learned to read over the weeks. Those eyes that had seen so much horror on distant battlefields and violent small-town streets, but that now looked at her with something that made her heart race in a way completely different from fear. There was warmth there. There was determination. And there was something softer that Emma was afraid to name because naming it would make it real, and real meant it could be lost. "When I met you," Jake admitted, and there was a raw honesty in his voice that revealed how much this confession cost a man who rarely admitted feelings. "You were just a witness, a case, a professional responsibility. I'd taken on because nobody else would do it right, and because I had my own reasons for not failing again." He paused, and Emma saw something shifting in his expression as he searched for the right words to explain a transformation he probably didn't even fully understand himself. But at some point in the last few weeks sometime, between that desperate escape from the safe house, when gunshots echoed behind us, and you still managed to keep a cool head, and the nights by the fireplace, where we talked until dawn about things I'd never told anyone, and all those little conversations, where you gently but persistently let me see beyond my own walls, you ceased to be a fling. Jake took her hand, and the gesture that had become almost habitual between them suddenly carried a new weight, their fingers intertwining in a way that felt simultaneously as natural as breathing and as monumental as an oath. "You've become the person I think about when I wake up, not as a responsibility, but as someone I genuinely want to see, talk to, be near. You've become the person whose perimeter I obsessively check, and yes, I know it's obsessive. You don't need to tell me, because the idea of something happening to you terrifies me in a way that nothing else does." Emma felt tears burning again, but she forced herself not to look away, to really listen and absorb what Jake was saying, instead of deflecting or minimizing it as her instinct urged her to do. "You became the person who reminded me that there are things worth risking everything for," Jake continued, and there was an almost shy wonder in his voice, as if he himself were surprised by the depth of what he felt. "Not just risking my career or reputation, I'd made those choices before and was at peace with them, but risking my heart, risking caring again, risking letting someone into the parts of me I'd sworn to keep locked away forever." He squeezed her hand, and Emma felt the almost imperceptible tremor in that grip. Jake was scared too, she realized, maybe not in the same way she was, but he was equally terrified of putting his heart on the line after years of keeping it carefully hidden. "Then no," Jake said with a firmness that contrasted with that momentary vulnerability. "You're not alone. You never have been since the moment I took you out of that apartment. And I'm not going to let you run away to put yourself in danger because you think you're a burden, or because you're trying to protect me from consequences I consciously chose to accept." He paused, searching for the right words to express something that clearly meant everything. "You're not a burden, Emma. Double quotes." He paused, searching for the perfect words, the exact description that would capture what she meant to him, but then seemed to realize that there were no perfect words for something so complex and profound. So instead of continuing to struggle for eloquence, Jake gave up trying to find them and simply acted. He pulled her into a hug, strong and protective, in the way Emma had learned to associate with Jake, but also vulnerable in a way he rarely allowed, as if he also needed that physical contact as much as he was offering it to her. Emma sank into that embrace, finally allowing herself truly to accept that comfort, instead of trying to be strong or independent, or anything other than what she truly was at that moment. An exhausted and frightened woman who had finally found someone willing to share the burden, instead of just watching her carry it alone. She could feel his heart beating against his chest, where her face was pressed. She could feel his breath moving through her hair. She could feel the strength of those arms around her, but also the gentleness in the way he held her, as if she were precious, but not fragile. As if she could break, but he trusted that she also knew how to rebuild herself. "I'm so scared," Emma murmured against his chest, the confession muffled but still audible. "Not of the danger out there. I can handle that, especially now that I know I'm not facing it alone. But I'm afraid that this is too good to be true. That it's circumstantial. That when the dust settles and life returns to normal, we'll look at each other and not know how we fit in outside of extreme situations." Jake didn't loosen his embrace, but she felt him speak, the words vibrating through his chest. "Then we make it work. We figure out how we fit together. It won't be perfect because nothing is. There will be adjustments and difficult conversations, and probably arguments about how I'm too closed off, and you take on too much responsibility." There was a touch of dry humor in his voice now. "But Emma, complicated people don't need perfect relationships. They need real relationships, where both people decide it's worth a try." Emma stepped back enough to look at him again. And this time, there was something different in her eyes. No longer that paralyzing fear of inevitable rejection, but a tentative spark of hope. "Is it worth trying?" she asked, and the question carried layers, not just about their relationship, but about her entire life, about whether she deserved good things, about whether it was possible to rewrite old narratives about her own worth. "It's all worth trying," Jake replied, without hesitation. "You're all worth it, Emma." And in that moment, sitting on the icy steps of an isolated cabin in the middle of the night, with danger still lurking in the shadows and an uncertain future ahead, Emma made a decision. Not a grand, dramatic decision or an instant transformation from decades of conditioning. Those things don't work that way. But a small, vital decision. She chose to believe. Not completely, not without reservations or residual fears, but enough. Enough to stay, enough to try, enough to allow Jake to stay. "Okay," she said softly. "Okay, I'll stay. I trust you. I'll try to trust in this." Jake let out a sigh that Emma hadn't realized he was holding back, and she realized he'd been just as nervous as she was about this conversation, about whether she would choose to trust him, or whether fear would win. "Thank you," he said simply. And those two words carried a weight of gratitude and relief that needed no further explanation. Comment below. This is the kind of love everyone deserves. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because Emma's decision to finally trust in the icy embrace on the cabin steps, where they had both laid bare their souls, marked the beginning of something greater than mere survival. It marked the moment when two people stopped simply reacting to danger and began actively shaping their own destiny together. They remained like that for several minutes that seemed simultaneously eternal and instantaneous, wrapped in each other while the night's chill penetrated their clothes, but neither of them moved to go inside. There was something sacred in that moment that they both instinctively knew should not be rushed. But eventually, reality set in, with Emma beginning to tremble, not from emotion this time, but from genuine cold. Jake sensed it immediately, loosening his embrace. "You're freezing," he said. "Let's go inside." Emma nodded, but as Jake began to stand, she held his arm. There was something she needed to say before the moment passed. "Jake, thank you," she said, and the words were inadequate, but they were all she had. "For not giving up on me. For seeing beyond what I show. For making me feel like I matter." Jake didn't respond with words. Instead, he kissed her forehead gently, a gesture so full of tenderness that it made Emma's heart clench, and then helped her to her feet. They went inside together, Jake picking up the abandoned backpack and placing it in the corner of the room as a silent reminder of an escape that never happened. Once inside, with the door locked and the fireplace relit, Emma finally stepped back enough to look at him with newfound clarity. She had made the decision to stay, but now she needed to understand exactly what she was relying on. "So what's the plan?" she asked, her voice possessing a firmness that hadn't been there before. "Because you're right, I can't run away. But we also can't just stand here waiting for them to make their next move." Jake nodded, pleased that she was finally thinking like a partner instead of a fleeing victim. He walked over to the table where he'd left his laptop, gesturing for Emma to join him. "We're going on the offensive," he said, opening his laptop and pulling out a chair for Emma. "Enough of just reacting, we're going to force their hand." He brought up a document on the screen, a detailed operational plan with timelines and maps. "Rebecca at the FBI is already working on a larger operation against Victor Castellano. They've had him on their radar for months, but he's slippery. Rich enough to have excellent lawyers. Smart enough to maintain layers between himself and anything illegal." Emma studied the screen, seeing the complexity of the operation. "But they need more evidence," she said, beginning to understand. "Exactly," Jake confirmed. "They need more direct connections between Castellano and criminal activity. Specifically, evidence that he personally ordered the threats against you. This is a serious federal crime that even the best lawyers would have difficulty circumventing." He scrolled to another section, "And I have an idea of how to achieve exactly that." "Using what as bait?" Emma asked, already knowing the answer. "Not you," Jake said immediately, almost defensively. "Never you as real bait exposed to direct danger. You'll stay here, under the protection of a full federal team. Rebecca will position at least 6 agents around the property." Emma let out a sigh of relief. "But we can make them think they're tracking you," Jake continued, demonstrating a series of planned transactions. "Rebecca can create a fake digital trail, credit card use in a distant city, a call from a disposable cell phone, a planted sighting. We make it look like you really escaped, that you managed to get past their surveillance." The elegance of the plan began to reveal itself. "And when they respond, we're following them," Jake added. "We're tracking who's responding, following the communications back to Castellano, recording his orders, documenting everything. Hopefully he'll be involved enough that we can prove direct command." Emma studied the plan, her mind processing the details. "What if they don't bite? So we continue building the case in other ways," Jake admitted. "Rebecca has multiple lines of investigation. But Emma, I want to be honest. There are no guarantees. There's a chance he could get away with it. There are always unforeseen risks." Emma appreciated the brutal honesty. "How long does it take to prepare?" 72 hours, Jake replied. "Rebecca needs to position agents, prepare the false trail, coordinate with local authorities. 3 days, and we'll be ready." 3 days, 72 hours between now and a possible resolution. Emma felt the weight of that window settling upon her. "And I'll stay here," Emma said. "You'll stay here," Jake confirmed. "But not alone. I'll stay too. And starting tomorrow, the federal team will arrive. You'll have constant protection." Emma nodded slowly. There was so much that could go wrong. But for the first time since that night in the alley, she felt there was a path ahead that wasn't just endless survival. There was a path to real resolution, to reclaiming her life. "Okay," she finally said. "I'm in." Jake studied her face, searching for signs of hesitation. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure," Emma interrupted him. And for the first time, she really was. "I want my life back, Jake. And I trust you." There were immense risks, they both knew. But for the first time, Emma felt something beyond fear. She felt hope. And more importantly, she felt she wasn't alone. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because those 72 hours that followed were a journey of meticulous preparation, where every detail mattered, where every move was choreographed with surgical precision. And behind the scenes of this operation, while federal agents set up surveillance and Rebecca coordinated encrypted communications, Emma and Jake lived in a suspended time bubble, knowing that everything was about to change, for better or for worse. The first day was dedicated to the arrival of the federal team. Emma woke to the sound of discreet vehicles parking around the property, and when she looked out the window, she saw Jake talking to a woman in her early 30s, her black hair pulled back in an efficient ponytail, her posture screaming federal. Rebecca Torres, Emma realized. The woman Jake had mentioned so many times, the ally who had staked her own career on trusting him. When Rebecca entered the cabin and reached out to Emma, there was a quick but thorough assessment in her eyes, not judgment, but the kind of analysis that comes from years of working in high-stakes situations where reading people quickly can mean the difference between life and death. "So you're Emma Carson," Rebecca said, and there was a genuine warmth in her voice that contrasted with the professional sternness. "Jake has spoken highly of you, and from the way he speaks, I'd say you're much more than just a witness." Emma felt a blush rising in her cheeks, but Rebecca had already turned to Jake with a knowing smile that made him look uncomfortable in a way that Emma found strangely comforting. Even the ruthless Sheriff Mercer could be teased by a close friend. The next 2 days were an orchestra of controlled activity. Agents established perimeters, tested communication equipment, and reviewed emergency protocols repeatedly. Emma was briefed on every aspect of the plan, not because she needed to know operationally, but because Jake had insisted she deserved complete transparency about any operation revolving around her. She learned that the false trail would begin at 6 in the morning on the third day, with a credit card transaction at a diner 160 kilometers away. 30 minutes later, there would be a call from a disposable cell phone to a police information number. At 9, a planted informant would report a sighting at a train station, each piece designed to look like a woman on the run making small mistakes under stress. "The key," Rebecca explained during a briefing on the second night, "is to make it seem realistic, not too perfect. Emma, the fake Emma we're creating, is scared. She ran away impulsively. She's making the kinds of mistakes someone without training would make. Using a credit card because she needs to eat. Making calls because she's panicking. Being seen because she doesn't know how to really disappear." Emma listened to everything, absorbing the complexity of the operation that had been set up around her. And during those 3 days, while the federal machine moved with impressive efficiency, something else was happening in the quiet spaces. Between briefings and shift changes, Mun and Jake were learning to exist alongside each other, not just in survival mode, but in something approaching normalcy. They cooked together on quiet mornings before the agents woke up. Emma discovered that Jake made surprisingly good coffee, but burned toast to an impressive degree. Jake discovered that Emma had a habit of humming softly while washing dishes, old songs she didn't even realize she was singing. They were small, mundane moments, precious, precisely because of their normality. On the evening of the second day, sitting on the balcony under a starry sky impossible to see in larger cities, Emma finally asked the question that had been nagging at her mind. And then, she asked softly, "After this is over, assuming it ends the way we hope, what happens to us?" Jake remained silent for a long moment, and Emma braced herself for a non-answer or an evasive response. But then he turned to look at her with that brutal honesty she had come to expect from him. "I don't know," he admitted, "and anyone who says they know is lying, but I know what I want. I want you in my life. I want to find out how you drink coffee. I want to annoy you with my obsessive schedules. I want to meet your friends, if you'll let me. I want ... double quotes." He paused, searching for the right words. "I want all the normal, boring, and wonderful things people have when they're not running away through life." Emma felt tears burning, but this time, they were good tears. Want that too? And then came the third day. The day of the operation. Emma woke up at 5 in the morning with butterflies in her stomach that had nothing to do with physical danger and everything to do with the anticipation of resolution. Jake was already awake, of course, reviewing final details with Rebecca. At 6 o'clock sharp, the first transaction was made. Emma watched on her laptop as the system registered the purchase of coffee and a sandwich in Jefferson Falls. The bait was set for the next few hours. Emma stayed in the cabin, surrounded by agents, while Jake and Rebecca coordinated from the makeshift command center they had set up in the basement. She listened to snippets of conversations through the radio that one of the agents kept on to keep her informed. We have movement. 2 vehicles leaving a known location in Castellano. Confirmed. They are following the trail. Unit 3, keep your distance. We don't want to scare you. The hours dragged on with agonizing slowness. Emma tried to read, but the words made no sense. She tried to eat, but the food tasted like cardboard. All she could do was wait while the operation unfolded miles away. Then, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, everything changed. Emma's phone rang, not the cell phone she had been using, but a landline number for the cabin that almost no one knew. She looked at the nearest agent, who immediately became alert, signaling to the others while gesturing for Emma to answer, but put it on speakerphone. With trembling hands, Emma answered, "Hello." There was a pause, static interference, and then a voice that made her blood run cold. It was Jake. But something was terribly, horribly wrong. His voice was strained in a way she had never heard before, laden with barely concealed physical pain. "Emma," he said, and she could hear the pain not only in his voice, but in the effort it took to speak. "They got me." The world stopped. Emma felt as if someone had ripped the ground out from under her feet. The agents around her burst into activity radios being activated, calls being made, but it was all distant noise compared to the sound of Jake's voice. "And they said," Jake continued, and there was something in his tone that sounded like an apology, as if he were failing her in some fundamental way, "that if you don't show up at the 5th Avenue warehouse in 2 hours, alone, I'll die." Emma stopped breathing. Around her, agents were shouting into radios. Rebecca was being contacted, but all Emma could hear was the echo of those words. Jake, the man who had risked everything to protect her, who had become more important to her than she had realized up to this point, was in the hands of people who wouldn't hesitate to kill him. Sometimes, the enemy doesn't play by the rules you expect. And now Emma faced the impossible choice Jake had tried to avoid. Let him die and live with that guilt for the rest of her life, or surrender knowing she would likely lose both his life and hers. Comment below. I can't believe this is happening. And there was Emma, holding that phone with hands trembling uncontrollably. The sound of Jake's painful breathing still echoing in her ears, while around her a dozen federal agents shouted into radios, and Rebecca was informed through multiple channels that the operation had been compromised in a way no one had anticipated. They had planned for so many contingencies, covered so many angles, but they hadn't foreseen this. Castellano, desperate and dangerous, would make such a bold move as to capture the very sheriff coordinating the operation against him. Emma looked at the nearest agent, a man in his 40s with a scar on his chin and eyes that had seen too much, and saw in his expression the same brutal truth that was forming in her own mind. She had a choice to make, the most impossible choice anyone could face, and she had less than 2 hours to make it, to let Jake die and live with that guilt for the rest of a life he had fought so hard to preserve, or to surrender, knowing that Castellano had no reason to keep them both alive once she was in his hands. It was a choice where there was no right answer, where each path led to devastating loss. But as Emma stood there, paralyzed between two impossibilities, something began to shift within her. Not a magical answer or a perfect plan materializing out of nowhere, but something more fundamental. The transformation that had begun on that balcony 3 nights earlier, when she chose to trust, when she chose to stop carrying everything alone, When she finally allowed someone to fight alongside her, she wasn't alone. Not anymore. And Jock, the man, who had spent 6 years punishing himself for failing to save someone, who had risked everything not to fail, again wouldn't be alone either. Not as long as Emma breathed. Rebecca burst through the door like a hurricane, cell phone in one hand and tablet in the other, already coordinating rescue teams, before even fully entering the room. And when her eyes met Emma's, there was something there beyond federal professionalism. There was understanding. Understanding from someone who also had people she loved, who would also know exactly what Emma was feeling at that moment. "We're going to get him out of there," Rebecca said. And it wasn't an empty promise, but a declaration of intent. "And you're going to help me do it. But not the way they expect." And for the first time since that connection came, Emma felt something beyond paralyzing terror. She felt determination. She felt anger. And he felt that stubborn spark of hope that refused to die even when logic dictated it should. The war was far from over. In fact, it had just entered its most dangerous phase. But Emma Carson, the nurse, who had spent her life invisible, who had witnessed something she shouldn't have, and who had found a man willing to risk everything for her, wasn't going to let this story end with surrender. Sometimes, the greatest act of love isn't sacrifice, it's fighting. Even when the odds are impossible. Even when fear threatens to paralyze you. Even when every instinct screams to give up. Emma Carson had learned this in the last few weeks. And now, with the man she loved in mortal danger, and the clock ticking, she was about to prove it. Look, if this kind of story resonates with you, if you feel this intensity, this connection between characters who go to the extreme for what matters, subscribing to this channel is a way to continue walking this path with me. Because Emma and Jake still have a lot of story ahead of them. And I don't want to tell it alone. I want you here, experiencing every second with me. Comment below. I'm with you until the end, because I need to know if you're as invested in this as I am. If you felt every word, every moment of tension, every racing heartbeat, and if this touched you in any way, if you felt the tightness in your chest when Jake was captured, if you understood the weight of the choice Emma faces now, leave a like so I know. It's more than a button, it's you telling me that these stories matter, that it's worth continuing to tell them. There's a video here on the side for part 3. The tension rises. She wants to disappear from the city, but the sheriff brings proof that the criminals are already after her. Click and follow along there, because you won't want to miss what comes next. The story doesn't end here. In fact, the most intense part is just beginning. See you soon, and thank you for being here with me.